Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Mahabir Narwal, Professor, Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. The outlines of this module are learning objectives, introductions, characteristics of power, power and authority, sources of power, acquisition of power, strategies to gain power, acquisition of subunit power, power relationships, power dynamics, power indicators. The basic learning objectives of this module are to understand the concept meaning of power, to understand the characteristics of power and sources of power, to know the strategies to gain power, to know the power relationship, power dynamics, power indicators. So first of all, I'll discuss introduction. Till recent time, power and politics were not discussed in the organizational behavior studies because they were treated as dirty words. But now both the words have been discussed in length because of their impact on the behavior of the people in the organization. This is why every discussion on organizational behavior nowadays have power and politics as an important subject. If a person able to influence the behavior of other individuals, it means he has power. Power is generally taken to be the capacity of a person to exert influence over others. The essence of power lies in controlling the behavior of others. We have few definitions of the power. One of the definitions is power is the potential ability to influence behavior, to change the course of event, to overcome resistance, to get people to do things that they would not otherwise do. Another important definition of power given by Max Weber, that is power is the probability that one actor within a social relationship will be in a position to carry out his own will despite resistance. Another definition of power is the ability to influence people or things, usually obtained through the control of important resources. According to Kurt Lewin, the possibility of inducing forces of a certain magnitude on another person. Now I'll discuss the characteristics of the power. The power characteristics are as follows. Dependency relationship. It can be actual or perceived, but whatever may be the form, it leads to creation of power. Power are dependency of one person on other. This is the basic feature of power. Higher amount of power can be exercised if the dependency of one person on other. Reciprocal relationship, being influenced and influencing others are the two ways concept on which power is based. In an organization, power relationships are essentially reciprocal in nature. Only high up have power is a misconception in the organization. Another characteristic of power is specific in nature. All people cannot exercise power at all times. Power is always specific in nature. In a particular situation, one person can exercise greater amount of power, whereas in the same situation, another may not be able to do the same. Power is elastic. The legitimate power attached to the positions also increases as people reach higher positions in the organization. Power can be contracted also due to transfer or shifting from one department to another department. People try to acquire more and more power, that becomes habituate to exercise power. Power and authority. These two are different though closely related concepts, but sometimes these are used as synonymously. According to C.I. Bernard, defines power in terms of informal authority. According to Henry Fayol, authority as the right to give orders and the power to extract obedience. It is possible to find a number of variations between these two extremes. The difference between power and authority is discussed below. Power. Power is a personal quality of a person. It needs not be legitimate. Authority is vested in the position, not the person. That's why it is called legitimate power. Power can be negative or positive phases. Personal dominance is negative. However, socialized power is positive. In case of authority, there are no such distinct phases of authority. In case of power, it's a broader concept. It includes authority also to some extent. But authority, it's a narrow concept. It is nothing but institutional power. Power is a concept which is generally associated with leadership. Authority is a position based, it is always vested in the superiors or subordinates. Power is ability of a person to affect and influence the others. Authority is a right of command and extract obedience from subordinates. Power can flow in all directions, upward, downward and horizontal. Authority is a downward flowing concept. The lower we go down in the level of hierarchy, lesser is the authority. Now, according to David McClelland, who identifies two phases of power. One is negative phase and second is positive phase. Negative phase, here leadership with negative phase of power treats people as pawn to be used or sacrificed as the need arises. The negative phase of power expressed in terms of dominance, submission or in some other ways, I win, you lose. Positive phase of power, exerting influence on behalf of others rather than over others, is the positive phase of power. Encouraging subordinates to develop the strength and competence as they need to succeed as human beings as well as members of the organization are generally the leaders who exercise their power positively. Sources of power. There are sources which are based on organization and interpersonal interaction. Interpersonal sources of power. These sources are based on the interpersonal relationships between subordinate and manager. French and Raven has recognized 5 sources related to power based on interpersonal relationships. These are reward power. It is different form of rewards in the organizational context can be positive performance appraisal, preferred work shifts, better pay system, promotion, etc. This is power through which employees in an organization can be influenced. When the employees are subordinates, perform well and achieve the desired target, managers give them reward. It is a good strategy to influence the subordinate or employee in the organization. Coercive power. This is the power through which in the organization a manager can control individuals, give them punishment and refuse the rewards. Coercive power is the ability to influence punishment. It is opposite of reward power. Punishment fear may make the subordinate to execute the instructions of the boss. This coercive power contains the power through which the subordinates may be fired or get demotion for their unsatisfactory performance. Legitimate power. It includes both coercive and reward power. Though legitimate powers are wider than reward and coercive power, because of authority inherent in the position, this power is also known as positional power. It shows that an individual has some position in the organization and formally he gets power according to his position. Referent power. This power is related with the desire in which a person wants to adopt the qualities, attitude of other person. Last is expert power. If the leader in a firm is competent, then his subordinates will follow them. Expert power mainly is a personal power rather than organizational power. This power is based on the perception or belief that influences have some relevant expertise or special knowledge that others do not have. Structural sources of power. In the organization, we have many sources of power which arises from the structure of the organization. For example, one is knowledge. People who can control the information related to current and future events or operations, and the people who influence the information flow are the people who affect the others' behavior. Knowledge play an important role in power. Resources. Without adequate availability of all resources, an organization cannot survive. The resources include man, power, material, equipment, etc. If an organization has resources, it is powerful. He who has the gold makes the rules, is the old saying. Decision making. Power to influence the authority who makes decision and who has power to make decisions is the another source of power. Acquisition of power. It is everybody's knowledge that some people enjoy more power than others. They do so by doing the right things, cultivating the right people, coalescing, co-opting, and others. Doing the right things for increasing personal power, some activities are considerably better than others. When the activities are highly visible, extraordinary, and developing a new program or designing a new product, the power of individuals increases. Although most employees faithfully perform their assigned role, methodical and dependable role performance doesn't necessarily increase an individual power. Cultivating the right things. Individuals can increase their personal power by developing informal relationships with the right people. If the interpersonal relationships are properly managed, virtually everyone can contribute to the development of the individual's personal power, including superiors, subordinates, and the peers. Coalescing. Individuals or groups frequently combine their resources to pursue common goals and objectives. The reason for joining together in such an alliance is an increased capacity to influence achieved through greater control of resources. For example, a labor union comprises many individuals seeking to promote the collective interest of worker. Now, co-opting. It is accomplished by absorbing people or groups whose support is needed into positions of limited influence. This tactics differs from the coalescing in that it specially seeks to eliminate threats and opposition to individuals' base of power. Other method of power acquisition. Each manager has a two-dimensional power base. The first is the positional power by virtue of his status in the organization, and the second one is personal power because of personal characteristic and knowledge. Acquisition of positional power. Wetton and Cameron has proposed some of the factors for building and enhancing positional power. These factors are scarcity. When resources are scarce in the organization, there will be a struggle in the different departments for acquiring these resources. The winner of the struggle will acquire power. Power will become apparent only when the resources are scarce. Uncertainty. Uncertainty plays an important role in acquisition of power. This may relate to reduction in supply of resources, fall in demand of companies' products, change in government policies, etc. The managers who are able to cope with such uncertainty and who can gain from such uncertainty can acquire power. Centrality. It refers to those activities that are most central to the work flow of the organization. The manager will acquire positional power if the information filters through him. This will give him some say in the work of many subunits. For example, the finance manager approves all the expenses and the payments to all the departments of the organization. This gives him an extra power based to affect the organization behavior. Substitutability, there are many people in the organization whose contribution are so much that they become indispensable. Valuable person holds the high power in the organization. This indispensability may be the result of their speciality, expertise and knowledge, which cannot be substituted easily by others. Acquisition of personal power. Personal power can be acquired and enhanced by enhancing individual traits. These are hard work. If a person is hardworking and sincere in his efforts, will have more personal power because of his expertise and reference. A sincere person is always respected by the subordinates. A hard-working person is perceived to know more about the job. Referent power. It contributes to a large extent to the personal power of the manager. The manager should have a charisma that attracts the subordinates to him and make them follow him every day. Expertise. Expertise can be gained through possession of special knowledge, which can be gained by education, training and experience. Expertise can also be obtained by information gained by having access to data and or people. A manager can enhance or acquire personal power through the expertise. Now, strategies to gain power. The power tactics are used by the employees to translate their power bases into specific actions. The important tactics used by the people to gain power are as follows. Reasoning consists of use of facts and data to make a logical or rational presentation of ideas. An individual can use reasoning to gain power over others. Assertiveness. It is the use of direct and forceful approach. The manager may demand strict compliance with request repeating others, ordering individuals to do what is asked and pointing out the rules require compliance. Higher authority. Some managers may gain the support of higher values in the organization to back up their request to their subordinates. Sanctions. An individual can gain power over other person by preventing or promising a pay rise, by demoting or promoting a person, or by threatening to give an unsatisfactory performance appraisal. Another one is pressure. It is a hostile method of gaining power. For example, trade unions may threaten strikes if their demands are not met by the management. On the other hand, management may threaten a lockout in the factory if the trade unions do not accept its terms. Competition. Due to scarcity of the resources in the organization, various groups compete with each other to have a greater share of such resources. For this, they try to influence the criteria used as the basis of resources distribution in the form of funds, space, support, staff, etc. Friendliness. An individual can gain power over another person by the use of flattery, creation of the goodwill, acting humble, and being friendly prior to making a request. Acquisition of subunit power. Department or sections in an organization represents the subunits. Like an individual, power subunits obtain power. For that, subunits have many strategies. The power acquisition by sections and departments leads to intergroup conflicts. For acquiring subunit power, some methods are there which are generally used. Controlling strategic contingencies, helping to control uncertainty, being irreplaceable, performing central functions, and controlling resources. Now, control of strategic contingencies, it means having control on the activity on which other subunits depends. In an organization, one activity is related with many departments. One department cannot perform its job until the other department performs its job. Power relationship. Power is a unilateral process of influence from the agent of the power to the target. But the research has proved that power involves a reciprocal relationship between the agent and the target. Both the agent and the target possess distinct characteristics. Now, the characteristics of the target, dependency. The greater the target's dependency on the relationship to agents, the more the targets is influenced. The examples of this are where a target cannot escape a relationship, perceives no alternatives or values the agent's rewards as unique, etc. Uncertainty. The more uncertain a person is about the correctness or appropriateness of behavior, the more likely he is to be influenced to change the behavior. Age. Social psychologists have generally concluded that susceptibility to influence increases in young children up to about the age of 8 or 9 and then decreases with the age until adolescence when it levels off. Culture. The culture values of a society have a tremendous impact on the influence ability of its people. Gender. Traditionally, it was acknowledged that women were more likely to conform to influence than men because of the way they were raised. But this evidence is now changing. There is less of a distinction on the basis of gender. Intelligence. Highly intelligent people may be more willing to learn on one hand, but because they also tend to be high in self-esteem, they may also be more resistant to influence on the other hand. Power dynamics. Following are the dynamics of power. One is distribution of power. About power distribution, following observation can be made. Those in the power try to grab more of it. They strongly resist any attempt to weaken the power they yield. A power cannot have power at all places and all the times. He may be forced to forego his power or he may be stripped of it. The higher the power of a person, the greater is the amount of his power. This matter is, however, not so simple because of the presence of multiple bases of power. Second, power dynamics, dependency. Dependency, a group or a person cannot have power in isolation. Each party to the power relationship is in a position to some degree to be able to control or influence others' conduct. In mutual dependency, the power of a person over another depends on the amount of resistance the other person can put against the influence attempts by the person. Trappings, it indicates the paraphernalia of power that people possess. From this point of view, every higher office has more power as compared to a lower office. Reputation. People are knowledgeable about power relationships and willing to report what they know. Power of an individual can also be assessed by his reputation in the organization as perceived by others. Uncertainty. The uncertainty elements of dynamics of power can be elaborated on the following lines. 1. The more the contingencies controlled by a unit, more is the power exercised by it. Second, organization seeks to avoid uncertainty as far as possible. People can absorb uncertainty, yield more power. Compliance. Compliance element of dynamics of power can be described as 1. People generally comply with legitimate power as compared to all other types of power. Second, Reward and coercive powers are generally used by managers as tools for compliance. Now, I will discuss power indicators. When power is invisible, it affects more. It is not easy to tell when power is being used. People do not want to know others when they use their power. People fail to realize what they are doing while they use power. The people who use power think that their influence is not political but rational. There are 5 criteria available to check the use of power in decision making rather than by logic. The 5 indicators of powers are representation on committees, reputation, consequences of power, symbol and determinants of power. First, reputation. Asking the organizational members about the possession of greatest power is the way of assessing power in the organization. This method assumes the power have knowledge and wants to report about power relationships and measures the reputation on organizational members perceived by others. Second, symbols. Examining symbols of power possessed by an individual can be determined by power of different individuals they possessed. Special parking privileges, automobiles, airplanes and office furnishing are some examples of symbol. Third, consequences of power. Those who possess greatest power used to influence decisions and get favorable decisions outcome. Power and consequences relationship needs to be carefully interpreted. Typically, we assumed that who persuade others are the most powerful people. Fourth, determinants of power. The people who have greatest power possess the good knowledge. One method of assessing power focuses on the potential exert influence and consists of measuring how many determinants of power are available to each member. Fifth one, representation on committee. This is the last way of assessing power. Individuals have greatest power for their department who are invited to significant administrative councils for the participation, like participation of engineers in quality circle or the participation of accountants in meeting of executive committee. Now, along with these indicators, we have been given some examples like reputation. Some examples are asking for one's opinion, seeking one's advice and comments by others, acknowledging one's power. Second indicators, symbols. Its examples are invitations to attend social events and sitting at those events, size, furnishing and location of one's office. Indicators, that is consequence of power. Examples are authority to hire and fire others, ability to authorize exceptions to policy, budget allocation and win-lose record in debated issues. Determinants of power, its examples are referent power, expert power, legitimate power, coercive power, reward powers. Representation on committees, its examples are executive committee, presidential task forces, the status and member of committees membership, advisory committee, board of directors. Summary, if a person able to influence the behavior of other individuals, it means he has power. Power or dependency of one person on the other. This is the basic feature of power. Power can be contracted also due to transfer or shifting from one department to another. Work shifts which are suitable to the employees, positive performance appraisal, employees promotion, better payment to the employees, etc. can be different forms of rewards in the organizational context. Individuals can increase their personal power by developing informal relationships with the right people. Now, points to ponder. Dependency of one person On the other is the basic feature of power. Higher amount of power can be exercised if higher the dependency of one person on other. Authority is a narrow concept than power. It is nothing but institutional power. If the subordinates view their leaders as competent, they would follow their leader. When the activities are highly visible, extraordinarily, and developing a new program or designing a new product, the power of individual increases. Thank you very much.